Thank you guys so much for joining the episode here with Andrew Glaze. I just want to let you guys know up front that there are some technical difficulties here. Andrew was battling some respiratory issues, and there are some areas where it's hard to hear him. I think this message is still definitely worth hearing, so just bear with us. Thank you guys for listening again.
Who the Wild Things Are with Ryan McGuire.
You gotta listen to your body.
Oh my God, maybe, I could get out there, I could do this.
Let's take a ride. Find your wild side. Real stories. See with your own eyes.
It's so beautiful.
I'm gonna have the best time out here.
Yeah, I was in tears. I was like, that's the best, man.
Welcome back to Who the Wild Things Are. My name is Ryan McGuire, and I'm here to bring you conversations with the most wild folks on the planet. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you enjoyed the episode, share it with a friend. Appreciate you guys. Let's get it going. How's the voice, chest sickness going?
It's definitely not. I'm not 100%, but we'll see what we can do. Hopefully it'll hold up.
Yeah, no worries. If it gets to be too much, you just let me know, and I'm sure everybody will understand.
No, I mean, it's just, yeah. You know what? Let me grab something to drink just in case my voice starts to get a little crazy.
All right. Well, super stoked that we can make this happen. I've been following along for a long time, and I just, I've been wanting to get the chance to sit down and talk with you. So I'm glad we can make it happen.
Yeah.
So I guess the first question I have for you, before we really dive into all the cool stuff you have going on right now, is, did you think of yourself when you were young as somebody that wanted to be an athlete? Were you always like, I'm going to be an athlete when I grow up?
No. I mean, I played sports a little bit. Like, I played football when I was like really young, mostly because my dad forced me to do it. It wasn't like I actively like wanted to play sports. Like my parents put me in soccer in kindergarten. They put me in t-ball. My dad played football. He was like the high school football star. So it was like real important for him, for his son to play football. So I think in like third grade, he told me I was going to play football, which of course I didn't want to. And then he, forced me to. It ended up being, an awesome experience. I made great friends and, all those things that you learn in like team sports. But, it's a significant amount of time commitment and everything. And then I had like somehow, like you do a position and then like you're kind of stuck with that position like your whole career. And I was an offensive lineman, which is like, probably one of the most unglorious, uncelebrated positions out there. You basically protect the quarterback. And so, I got really good at doing things and not having anybody pat me on the back. Oh, good job, because it was my job to protect the quarterback. So if we scored, the quarterback got credit. Yeah, the wide receiver got credit. The running back got credit. But, like, nobody ever goes, hey, great job, offensive line, even though, like, we're the reason that there was a hole or the quarterback had like extra 3 seconds to throw the ball. And so I just got really good at, kind of doing work where you celebrate. And then I eventually got to the point where I'm not big enough to be an offensive lineman. So when I got to like varsity, it was like, I remember the coach was like, well, you can either start taking steroids or you can, be on the B squad. And, I saw the guys on steroids and they had zits all over them. And I wasn't interested in that lifestyle. So plus I started kind of going down the bad kid path towards varsity, and so football wasn't my thing anymore. And no, I mean that was a long answer to I never really saw myself as an athlete. I played a sport, but and you get a Letterman jacket, a cheerleader, and did that sort of stuff. But it wasn't like I was like thinking in the future like this was going to be anything more than just high school and junior high and all that sort of stuff. So
The reason I ask is because I've been talking to different folks, you know, in survival and adventure and ultra running, and all these people are doing like really hard things for reasons that maybe somebody more quote unquote normal couldn't understand. And I'm trying to draw conclusions or see if there's similarities like between the way people grow up and sort of their mentality as a kid, and see if that kind of translates into becoming an ultra runner, becoming an adventurer. Are there any things from your childhood that like stick out as definitive moments that led you to this point now? Is it part of being a bad, like kind of like that bad rebellious kid, like that bad boy?
No, I think it just more, my father was a really, really hard worker, and really instilled in me the value of like hard work and the value of it. And if you know, do hard work, you're normally rewarded. For him, it was, you know, a financial reward, and, you know, he instilled in me the value of money, and, you know, that, you know, he was somebody that worked 100 to 120 hours a week. He owned his own business, you know, and he was able to provide for the family and everything really, really well because, you know, he worked really, really hard. Now, he was never home. You know, he had, you know, which was a whole other issue, but like, you know, it was just like the way I was raised was just like doing, you know, hard things. When I was 10 years old, I got my first job working for him, you know, worked every summer, worked after school, like all growing up. When I went to college, I'd come home and I'd work all summer. Like I worked at college. I had a job at college, and just was always putting in that hard work. Like, and I think that work ethic is sort of where I'm at now. I mean, obviously to like a slight extreme, but like, you know, I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm not afraid of putting in the time. I don't think I'm like inherently all that talented. I don't think that, you know, you look at like the guys that win ultras now and they're like, you know, 1 hour half marathoners and like, you know, 2:30 marathoners, and they're like super fast. It's incredible. I was never that. I mean, there was times when I ran slightly fast, but like maybe slightly fast on a local level, not like, you know, you know, I don't know. I think for me, it's like I found that if I just put in the work, if I put in the time, that I can be rewarded. But maybe it's not like I'm winning. It's like an internal reward, kind of like on the football field where it was like you'd win the game. Like it was like an internal reward for me because I knew that if I did a good job, that we would win when I was part of the team. I know now, like, if I put in the hard work and I put in the time and effort, that I can be successful in what I want to do. Not just in ultra running, but like in life, like in my career, in my family, like whatever. Like I don't look for shortcuts. I don't look for the easy route. I just know that if it's worthwhile, a lot of times it just takes time. You just got to put in the time. So.
Was exercising always a piece of that you enjoyed, or did that come later?
No, I mean, I wouldn't say that when I was young I super much enjoyed it. It was, you know, I liked playing the game, but I hated all the practice. I didn't really understand why we needed to practice 2 hours every day for 7 days so that I could play a 2-hour game when I was only having fun for those 2 hours. I wasn't like smart enough to understand that like all the practice was why the game was fun. Looking back now in hindsight, I can see, you know, why we did it and why we were then successful in the game. But as a child, I didn't think about it. And then after, you know, from 16 to 24, I did very, very little exercise in my life. So, I mean, for the last 21 years, I've been a runner, and I've been a lot of things, but there's, you know, 8 years where I did very little, and then, you know, before that, it was mostly just team sports and stuff like that. So, although you know, as a child, I'm a child. I was born in the 70s, so it's like I grew up in that time when we all didn't come home till it was dark, and we were all running around. Nobody had cell phones or anything, so you had to walk or run or ride your bike or do all that sort of stuff. I was an active kid. I mean, it wasn't like I was sitting home watching TV. I was roaming the neighborhood all day and all night till the streetlights came on. But it wasn't like a focus. It wasn't like I was like, oh, I like exercise. Like if someone had said, hey, here's a cell phone, and fast forward 10 years in the future, I'm sure my childhood self would have been super happy to just call somebody and not have to ride 3 miles over to the house to find out they weren't home.
Yeah, but that was we had all the adventure. Kids
Yeah.
these
Oh yeah.
days, they'll never know.
No. We'd meet up in the park or we'd meet up at the school and we'd, play tag football, whatever. We had fun back then, but I wasn't like it. I wasn't focused on, oh, I'm athletic or, oh, this is exercise or anything like that. I didn't, not till when I was in my 20s, I started having like pretty significant anxiety issues, problems like that because I wasn't active. That I start making the correlation between exercise being a good thing and exercise being something that could like help me. Previous to that, I never really thought about it. I didn't exercise at all. Like all through college, everything. Like, I didn't do any of that, and so. But now, obviously, it's a huge part of my life, and I understand the importance.
So that's interesting. You kind of, rather than exercising to get in shape or to have a six pack, you were like, I kind of feel like shit and I'm kind of anxious all the time. I need to exercise.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like the origin story of my exercise. Is I was having horrible anxiety. I didn't know what it was. This is got to be in like 90. Let's see, no, maybe it was 2000, like early 2000s, maybe 2002 or something like that. And I was having anxiety. I had no idea what it was. The internet wasn't big back then. It wasn't like I could go on and, if I went on WebMD, they probably would have said like, oh, you're going to die. But like, there wasn't like any good resources. There was no podcasts. There was nothing, nobody talking about anything. And so, I don't even, somebody, and I don't even know who the person was, like told me like, hey, it sounds like, you're having some anxiety. Like maybe you should start working out. And I got a personal trainer and started working out. And I wasn't running. I was doing like the elliptical trainer. I was lifting weights. I was, doing all the normal stuff that you would do at like an LA Fitness or, 24 Hour Fitness or something like that. And it worked. So, that was how it all kind of like started off, was me just not wanting to feel anxious and I was having like, panic attacks and like felt I couldn't breathe and I thought I was dying and all this stuff. And it was because I was super inactive. I'd been super inactive, for I guess 8 years at that point. Smoked cigarettes, drank, smoked weed, like nothing positive with my life. Worked weird hours, like, just nothing good. So, and then I discovered exercise as an adult and like never looked back.
When you say you worked weird hours, was this part of your, because I know you're a firefighter now, was that part of the picture at that point?
No, I didn't become a firefighter until I was in my 30s. I did like worked on computers and I did like network security on computers or like web. I mean anything that was like, because this was like right around the 2000s when like the crash happened and everything. But like build websites, e-commerce, whatever people needed back then. Like I was able to provide, and I just sort of worked for myself, like doing all that stuff because there was still a market for it. It was before like everything was automated and like you could just like, oh, I want to build a web page, like I'll just open up this program that will build it for me. It was before all that. So and e-commerce was still, even though we had just had the crash in 2000, people still wanted to sell stuff online and they were still trying to figure out that whole stuff. So securing servers and I don't know, all that boring stuff. But yeah, I worked weird hours. I work at night a lot. And, Yeah, just I wasn't on a normal schedule because I didn't have to be. I wasn't on like a 9 to 5. It was like more of like a deadline type job. So,
How did that transition into being a firefighter?
well, I mean, it was a lot of life changes all at once. Like I went through a divorce, uh, and after the divorce, I was kind of like, I want to change a lot of things about myself because this is a good opportunity, good fresh start. Um, right around that same time, my grandfather died, who was like a big influence in my life, and he was a pediatrician. And so when I was at his funeral, he was a pediatrician back in the day when you would like actually do house calls and like go to people's homes and like, um, so he made like a huge impact. And so at his funeral, like 500 people showed up from the community, and they were all like, adults, 50s, 60s, and they were, they all would come up to tell me like, your grandpa, when I was a little baby, like helped me and like blah, blah, blah. And I thought to myself like, wow, like my grandpa really made an impact to the point where all these people came to his funeral because at some point in these people's lives, my grandpa was able to touch them, help them, and, whether it was keep them alive or do something that made their life better. And it just started making me like, okay, well, obviously computers, nobody's coming to my, funeral being like, wow, this guy built me a website or he fixed my printer or whatever the hell I, could do. Um, and so I started looking for jobs that were like a little bit more like fulfilling, that would like help people, but also like, make me feel like I was doing something positive. And, through a series of, lots of research, I looked at, being a PA, being a physical therapist, lots of different things, just kind of like testing the waters. Um, I came up like, a lot of my friends were firefighter paramedics at the time, and they kind of like, hey, try this. And so I went down that path and didn't officially get hired with a department until I was like, I think 31 or something like that. So it was pretty late, big switch. I was going to community college to get my EMT, and, I'm 30 and everyone's 18, and just out of high school, I was the oldest guy in the class. Went to the fire academy. I was the oldest guy in the class. And, just completely switched careers. And, now I'm doing something that I feel like is providing a better service for like the world, I guess, or society in general. And it keeps my cup full. Like I feel like better about what's going on with me because of what I'm able to do at work. And a lot of times it's like kind of like the football thing. Like a lot of times, you'll save a life or you do something and you'll never hear from that person again. You'll know you saved them, and like, maybe they went on and did great things, maybe they went on and didn't, but you saved them. And then other times, like, you save people and you become like good friends with them and good friends with their families. And like one of my best friends is a guy that he had a heart attack and I saved him with a team, like we're a team. And he came to my wedding, and like, we talk every week, and like we're like really good friends. I mean, he's like 60 something, but like yeah, I mean, that's really, really rewarding too, to know that this guy was like dead, and like we were able to like work as a team and bring him back. And then all the things he's accomplished since he's been alive, because he calls himself Freddy 2.0 because he's, it's his second life. And he's done all these amazing things since he's been, since he came back. And that's really, really cool too. So definitely wasn't getting that when I was working on computers. So.
Wow, that's special, man. To have, you think about firefighters like getting like the cat out of the tree, like in the cartoons, or, saving or, putting out a house fire. But I guess you don't, from an outside perspective, think about how closely and intertwined you are with your community as a firefighter and EMT. That's really cool that you can not only save the life, but also turn that into a lifelong relationship.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, kids that have drowned that have saved, and like the family sends us cards every year on the kid's birthday, or like, I mean, just I get emotional thinking about it, but like, yeah, a lot of really touching stuff that we see people on their worst day, but hopefully we turn it into like a better situation. So, um, that's the whole paramedic side of it. The firefighting side's like, it's fun, the whole idea of, you know, working as a team dynamically to like put out a complex situation. But, we do medical, but there's lots of, and when we do hazmat, we do, if there's a like huge car accident or something like that, and you got to like cut them out with the jaws of life. Like there's a lot of different aspects to firefighting that's not just, putting out a house fire, a building fire or something like that. So.
Sure. And I think something that's interesting from the people I know that are firefighters, actually a lot of them are like endurance athletes. And I'm wondering, is part of that because the schedule is so much different than a normal schedule that it kind of allows you to maybe get in these miles midday or stay on your feet and stay active while other folks with a more prototypical typical job would be kind of just sitting behind a desk?
Yeah, I mean, I can't like it's I get paid for like the full 24 hours, but like, people can call 911 at any time. So you got to fit it in where you can fit it in, but there are like more opportunities I think for me to like work out like throughout the day. I'm not like allowed to work out from like in the like the working hours like 10 to 5, but like in the morning I'm allowed to work out, and then I can work out in the evening. So, um, but, like anything, a lot of times, people call 911 all the time, so you don't get what you'd like to get, obviously, but it gives you the opportunity if you want to work out to work out. A lot of times we do have time to do it, which is nice. It also deals with the stress of the job. Like it's very stressful to deal with people on their worst day and see like a lot of horrible stuff, because you get the saves, but I would say the saves are, 5% of the calls. A lot of the calls are not saves, and a lot of the calls are, you know, just mundane stuff that stuff you don't want to see, like people that just don't take care of themselves and don't want to be taken care of, and are angry at you, or whatever. Um, just people taking advantage of the system and things like that. So it is nice to have an outlet again at work to be able to work out and deal with that stress. PTSD is a pretty serious issue going on in the fire service right now, and a lot of the big unions are trying to figure out ways to tackle it, because there's a high amount of firefighters that are now committing suicide. It's one of the number one killers of firefighters nowadays, overtaking cardiac issues or cancers and stuff like that. So I think when it comes to PTSD and the stress of our job, obviously there's a lot of different avenues to take, but I think one of the easiest ones we can take is exercise. It doesn't always work. We have opportunities to speak to therapists after really stressful calls, and just, I can talk to a therapist through my employer's assistance program, anytime I want, but for just that immediate stress debrief, I find for me exercise works really well. So yeah, it's one of those things that's sort of built into the job, and yeah, if you make the time, it's hard for me to say, because there's a lot of yes, there's a lot of firefighters that are endurance athletes, but I would say there's a lot more firefighters that are not endurance athletes. There's a lot of
Sure.
firefighters that are, that don't treat their body like a temple. So
Sure.
but you definitely have. Like anything, if you make time for things, then you can make it work. But I wouldn't say that it's easier to do it when you're a firefighter. It's just the opportunity is there. but it's still very challenging to juggle it all.
I hadn't even thought about the mental, well, it could be fuel or it could be debilitating depending on how that day or that situation goes, but I hadn't even thought about like the mental state of a firefighter and how that builds into, a workout or a run because I mean, anybody who's an athlete knows that your mindset coming into a workout or coming into a race is just as important as the shape of your body, right? Wherever your mind
Yeah.
is. Yeah, I'm curious, like, do you see your work and the things that happen on a day-to-day call affect the way that you're able to train?
I I don't know if it like affects the way I train. Like I think the hardest thing that affects the way I train is like the irregular sleep pattern because
Mm,
we'll go long periods of time sometimes without real sleep, um, or maybe you'll just sleep like an hour or two at night, and then you try to catch like a quick nap. Sometimes you can get like 45 minutes or an hour, but sometimes you can't. Uh, and so like my normal schedule is working 48 hours straight. So if I go 2 days with very little sleep and then get sent home, um, I'm wrecked. It takes, if you read all the books on sleep and listen to the podcast and do all that stuff, there's no, according to the experts, there's no like making up for like lost sleep.
it's
And
not real.
so, yeah, you try to take a nap when you come home or you try to do things, but I think the lack of sleep is probably the thing that affects training and everything the most. Um, for me, they say the way like PTSD and all that works is it's kind of like a pile that you're just stacking on top of, and you don't really think about how big the pile is getting until it's like too big and then overwhelming. And so I guess when I do these endurance events or I, train hard, because I run like, a lot of miles every day, I feel like it keeps the piles smaller. Like I'm able
Mm,
to sort of like decompress some of the bigger calls and not let them get so overwhelming. And then um, it's like they're still there, but like I don't like think about them as much. Like they're just like not a part of it. And like when I do like the real, like if I do like 100 miler, there's like moments in the 100 miler where my brain just like ceases to like really think about anything other than just sort of staying alive.
yeah.
Um, what do I need to eat? What's going on with my body? What's the terrain ahead? How many miles to the next aid station? Like I'm like laser focused on just staying alive and like finishing the race. And so that's to me very soothing because like I don't think about anything other than that. And I don't get like the busy brain where I like think about bad calls or think about the stresses of like real life. I'm just like I'm living in the moment of this like crazy race that I'm doing. Um, and that's what I really like crave. Like I love to like sort of shut the brain off and get it into that crazy like survival instinct mode. Um,
Yeah.
and I find that super, super therapeutic.
For somebody that's listening to that piece right there, you kind of glanced over it a little bit casually because you're a humble guy. You said you run a lot of miles every day. Um, Give people a little bit of insight into how much you have been running over the last couple years.
Um, so, over the last like 3 or so years I've run, I think between 23 and 24,000 miles. Um, I'm doing like this like streak thing where I run over 100 miles a week, and I just finished week 172. So about 3 years plus of running over 100 miles every week,
And that's in a
and
row.
in a row, yeah, like not it's a streak, yeah,
Like
every
never,
week,
never
never
missed.
breaking it, yeah. And then mixed into these like high volume weeks is I've been doing like a lot of ultra marathons, which like so this year I've done 11. I've done 800 milers, one 250 miler, and then 65 miler and a 33 miler. And so, like, just, that's hard because in the next week I still have to run 100 miles,
Right.
and and I just done this like crazy race. So yeah, some pretty significant endurance style, events and just high volume running. I think I averaged like about 22 miles a day. Um, Although not that much this year, just because I've been racing so much, it's hard to like balance that many miles when you have like like big races. But yeah, significant amount, 7 to 8,000 miles a year or something like that.
I mean, you're running more than most people drive, I feel like at this point. You're like a machine.
Yeah, I think I'm getting close to 50,000 miles on Strava, which is like an app. I keep track of my miles, and yeah, I'm getting close to 50,000 just on that app alone.
Have you
So,
been getting regular oil changes? Like, have you?
I mean, when you run that much, your whole focus in life is staying healthy. That's why it's like I'm getting over this illness, and it's like I do not get sick very often. Like it is very, very infrequent. It's been at least a year, maybe longer, since I've gotten sick. And before that, it had been several years. So, I try to take really good care of myself. I mean, I'm getting older. I'm 45, and it's challenging at times. But I'm still moving forward. So we'll see what happens.
What's the story behind deciding to do 100 miles every week, and what did you have in mind, and as far as like time horizon when you decide, okay, I'm gonna try and do, because you hear people do run streaks, right? Run a mile every
Yeah.
day for a year. What was your time horizon when you're like, I'm gonna do 100 miles a week?
Well, I mean, so I think in 2018, I did 28 100-mile weeks in a row. And
Okay.
I ended up like running Badwater, which is this crazy ultra marathon where you run from the hottest place in the world, which is Badwater Basin. And it was like 128 degrees, and you run to like Mount Whitney, which is like this big mountain in California. And I got super sick. I had like an electrolyte imbalance, like didn't pee for 18 hours. My whole body cramped up. I ended up not finishing the race, and it killed my streak. And then, I mean, I'm still a high volume runner. So even after that, like I still threw in some 100-mile weeks and did what I need to do, but I didn't do them like consecutively. And then I think like, the origin is basically COVID, where all the races got canceled, and all of a sudden it was like, well, got to do something hard to like keep myself busy, because I can't, if there's no races out there to like strive for. I was doing like virtual races and all the dumb stuff that they came up with during COVID to like keep a bunch of endurance athletes like active. But yeah, I just sort of like started up the streak again, which gave me just something to focus on, because if you can imagine the stress of being a firefighter paramedic, try thinking about being a firefighter paramedic on the front lines of COVID when nobody knew what was going on, and everyone's calling 911, and we had to gown up in these hazmat suits and like with these crazy masks and do all this stuff, and like so I needed an outlet to deal with the stress of all that. And I wasn't going to be racing, and they were trying to close down even outside, and yeah, so I it was sort of like the origin. And then like anything, when you're an endurance athlete and you get crazy about something, like, well, here I am, but like I assumed that like I would be injured or get sick or something would happen in life where like this streak wouldn't continue quite this long. There's been a couple low points where I didn't know if it was going to continue, but somehow managed to like eke it out. But when I started it, there was no way I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure I'll be doing this in 3 years, because I had already done it for 28 weeks, and something came up and I failed, and I was like, oh, okay, 28 weeks is pretty good. At the time, 28 weeks of running 100 miles in a ring, like people were like so blown away. Like not normal people, but like my little ultra community. Like I because I haven't always been as big on social media as I am now. And so like it used to be before like TikTok and Reels and stuff where like the algorithm started pushing you out to like everybody. Used to just be like, the people that followed me were mostly just like ultra runners, and I followed ultra runners, or like, you know what I mean? So in my little community, people knew that I was doing it, but outside of that, there wasn't much interest or anything like that. And there was no way to push that message out because the algorithm, the way that worked, just, that's not how Instagram worked back then. It was like you posted a picture or whatever, there's no real video or anything like that. So, but yeah, I mean, here I am like over 3 years later and it's still going on. And I'll tell you, this last week was probably my closest near miss that I've ever had. I was so sick and I was just lying in bed like for an entire day. I tried to run in the morning. I got 2 miles and just about died. Went home, just immediately slept until 5 p.m. And it was like Saturday, and I needed like 25 miles. And I told my wife, I go, I think this is the end. And she was like, this isn't the end. You're gonna figure this out. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like in bad shape. I like could not fathom running like 25 miles. I mean, that was like, and I had a day and a half to do it. And I was like, I don't think it's gonna happen, but. Long story short, I made it happen. So,
Tell me, how did you break up those last 25 in the day and a half?
So I ended up running like 6 miles that night, though they were quite slow and painful. The issue was like it got into my lungs, and so like I like taking a deep breath was like super hard. And so luckily I was at the beach, which is like, I'm at sea level, which is probably like the best spot to be if you have like some sort of respiratory thing. And I could just like, there's a path that just goes forever on the beach. So I'm like at sea level and it's flat. So I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And so I got like 6 done. So I'm like, all right, I got like 19 to go. And I got a good night's sleep. I woke up, I was still super sick. But Sunday morning, I just like went out and I just knocked out 15 miles, and like I got into like some podcast and was like just got really into it and just like got in my zone, and then I slept like the whole rest of the day, and then I think I got 5 miles in the evening that night, but like got it done, and then it was. And then Monday, I was like, I was like so broken off because I had done like 20 miles on Sunday. I was like, oh man. But then, I was able to still get like 17 miles on Monday. So it's still like hit or miss. I'm feeling better, but like it's still taking a really deep breath is hard. So I got to just keep the heart rate super low and just, not push myself super hard. And let me just preface, I don't recommend anybody do that. This is like really stupid shit. And like, I know that it's stupid shit. I know what doctors say, and, but if you want to have a run streak, sometimes you got to make some bad decisions. So, it is what it is.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's like people can say and have all their opinions about you that they like, but in my opinion, as far as I know, you're in uncharted territory. So who is anyone to tell you what to do at this point?
Right. I mean, I am in a little bit of uncharted territory for sure. I mean, I don't know if you follow like Candace, who she runs the 200-mile races, and she did like 200 days of running 33 miles or something like that.
Yeah, she's a Colorado girl, I think. I think she lives in Colorado.
Yeah. So it's like, again, she was doing pretty amazing stuff too, and everybody told her that she was going to fail and she was going to do all these horrible things to her body, and she just kept getting stronger, and she threw in some ultras in there too, and like she made it work. So
yeah, she ripped the Hurt 100 like square in the middle of it.
Yeah, exactly, and which is one of the it's a very, very hard 100-miler. That's one that I'm terrified. I will do it someday, but it's like a terrifying race for me. So I know I'll have to do it. but mostly because I'm just a horrible mud runner. It's like, God, it's like my weakness. But yeah, everybody's going to tell you that these things are, I shouldn't be doing it. And that's why I always just tell people, well, I agree. Like, you should not do what I'm doing. Like, I'm not. And if you follow me, you say you followed me. Like, I never tell people, like, hey, do what I'm doing. Like, you can use me for inspiration, but, like, don't try to do it. If you try to do what I'm doing, you're going to end up with an overuse injury. You're going to end up with all sorts of problems. And, I don't encourage that. I mean, do hard things, push yourself and, like, do ultras and do all that stuff. Yeah, but don't try to do this crazy run streak for, I mean, it's not encouraged by me.
So, do you think you are built different, like in terms of durability? Do you think that there's something different about the way that your body works, or is it mostly between the ears?
I think that I've gotten really, really good at running efficiently, and I really, really understand how my body works. And that I've learned through time that speed causes injuries.
Yeah.
And maybe not across the board. Like, I'm not a coach. I always say, like, but from my experience in running for 20 something years, anytime I've ever run fast or done fast workouts or speed workouts, those are the times when I always end up injured. And so now I focus on zone 2 running. People say the 80-20 rule. I do the 100-0 rule, which is 100% zone 2, 0% speed. And find that in moments where I need speed, I can find it through, like, my brain. That's like when you're running 100-mile races, unless you're, like, trying to win them, a lot of it's zone 2 work. Like, you're not out there. If you're in zone 3 or zone 4, you're probably doing it wrong.
You're toast.
Unless you're like the last 5 miles or something like that, and you're really feeling like you can charge. Yeah, you should be zone 2 the whole time. And, a lot of people are, hiking them and, like, doing them in probably zone 1. So, you should probably train how you race, and it's great if you can run 8-minute, 7-minute miles and you can do, like, these fast runs, but you're not going to be doing that during a 100-miler. Probably not going to even be doing it during, like, a 50-miler. So,
Yeah.
I try to do that through, like, really good body mechanics, through, making sure I always have a good pair of shoes and I don't put too many miles on them, and staying in zone 2. I think all those play, a factor in, me not getting super injured. Although, I get, like, I'm a human being. Like, I pull muscles and do things all the time, and I just have to work through them. I get massages. I do ice baths. I do sauna. I drink a ton of water. Take a variety of supplements that may or may not help. I try to stay healthy. So
What's your diet like? Are you eating a lot more calories than the average individual based on just the incredible amount of exertion and just overall time on feet?
Yeah, so I don't count anything, but I had a PhD student do, like, I think it was like a 1-month study on me where they gave me this app and I put in everything I ate for, like, a month. And then they gave me this report. And so I can only really speak based on that report. My diet's pretty much the same as when I did it. It was probably like a year or 2 ago. And the report basically told me, like, that I eat and burn very similar to the same amount of, like, calories. So it's like my calories in and my calories out are very, very similar, because also part of the study was I would put in how much exercise I had done a day. And that was like, I eat about 5,000 calories a day.
Okay.
And out of those calories, 50% are carbs, like 30 to 35% is fat, and then like 15 to 10% is protein.
Gotcha.
100% vegan diet, and Yeah, I mean I eat about 5,000 calories a day. I, you know, I like to eat. I'm not one of those people that has a hard time eating, so it's easy for me. People are like, "Oh, I could never eat that much," and it's like, yeah, I understand that there's people out there that have a really hard time eating. That is not me. If I stopped running, I'd probably be like 200 pounds.
Right.
It'd be hard. It would be hard for me not to eat. I love food. I love eating. I look forward to eating like every day. So yeah, food makes me super happy.
For folks that are trying to imagine this amount of work, can you put it in a time scale? Like think about these miles or your weekly run streak. What does the mileage and time look like?
It normally is like I would say like on average probably 30 hours a week.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, on like smaller, like, so this last week I only ran 105 miles. And I think it
Dang,
was
dude,
like,
that's nothing.
yeah, it was low. It was, 20 something hours, but normally because I'm running like 140 to 180 miles a week, it's, I think if you look back through my Strava, it's normally about 30 hours a week.
It's just funny, like that sound bite right there. Be like, yeah, I had an off week. It was 105 miles. Like that's more than some people run in their life.
Right. Well, again, I always tell people comparison is the death of joy. Don't compare yourself to me because it's gonna kill your joy. You should be really happy for even if you run 1 mile a day. That's more than most people.
Yeah, and that's a big part of your message, which I've always appreciated, is just kind of this smile or you're doing it wrong attitude, where it's just like if you're not having fun while doing this sort of thing, then it's not worth doing at all.
Well, and I think when you look at sports in general, like when we're growing up, running is like punishment,
Right.
and then you get into like when you become a runner as an adult, it's like all about like how fast can you do your 5K? How fast can you do your 10K? How fast you're going to Boston qualify? You got to do all this. It's like faster, faster, faster. And there's a lot of joy lost in trying to push yourself to go harder and harder and harder every time. There's a lot of fun in just running, like not necessarily doing a race or just the art of running, like running in the hills, running on the street, whatever. I try to push that, like, hey, like, it doesn't always have to be this like crazy competition. It can just be fun. Like you can just go out there and have a good time. Try to
Yeah.
like flip the switch, especially for like adults. Like, we don't always have to be so competitive with everything we do. Like you can just do something because it's fun. Um, and then, there's like that mental shift in running too, where it's like, it is a lot mental. So, if you can stay positive and you can stay smiling and you can stay in that zone in your brain, your run or your race or whatever it's gonna be better. Um, Especially during the low points, if you can somehow force out a smile, um, there's like a mental shift. Like smile at somebody during a race, they will instinctively smile back at you, and you'll have a like reaction in your brain. It's like the weirdest thing. Like you can't stop that reaction from happening. If someone smiles at you, you will like smile back. Even if you were like, in the hurt box and you're hating your life, like there's something that happens in your brain. Um, and so, it just really helps push through like a lot of that, like those hard points in a race or in a long run or in a short run or whatever. You can just keep that mental positivity.
So you did a recent race called the Cocodona 250. My friend Don, who was also on the podcast, did it. And I know you even did like the section beforehand, so it ended up being even longer. Walk me through just a little bit about that race series and what it was like leading up to what I assume to be your longest ultra of the year.
Yeah. So there wasn't. I made up this thing where I found a race that was like a day before, and I ran it, and then like had a day off, and then ran Cocodona. So it wasn't like a race series. It was just like it was something I just made up, and then I called it the Coco Canyons because one was called Canyons 100 Miler, and one was called Cocodona. So that was just me being extreme. But Cocodona is, so I've done it all 3 years. The race has been around for 3 years. I've done it all 3 years. I've done it all 3 years solo, which means I go out there with no crew, no pacer, nobody to help me. And it's a beast, man. It's a very, very challenging race through some very, very tough conditions. It's almost like more of like a through hike than it is like an ultra marathon, because there's so many sections that are like really unrunnable because they're so rocky and technical. And those sections just like really, really beat you up because that rocky technical stuff is like really hard on all your stability muscles and all that sort of stuff that you need. And then you're dealing with like lack of sleep, multiple day events, hot days, cold nights, dry weather to the point where your nose bleeds and your lips crack, and you're having to manage, going to the bathroom and eating and all the craziness over multiple days. The race starts like just north of Phoenix and it ends in Flagstaff. And for people that don't know a lot about Arizona, they think, oh, it's like a desert. It is a desert, but the northern part of Arizona is like Grand Canyon. So it's very, very high. It's like Flagstaff is like above 7,000 feet. So like, people think of like, Denver, Colorado is so high, and I think Denver's like 5,000 feet. So it's like 2,000 feet higher than Denver. It's very mountainous and stuff. And so you're basically climbing out of the desert into these, mountains, which is also very, very challenging. It's a really, really brutally beautiful, but like very, very hard race. I hope it becomes like a really big thing. What's that?
How does that change it being alone? What's the like the shift in mindset versus having a crewed ultra versus doing it kind of unsupported?
I mean, so I have had a few races where people have crewed me. It was mostly like when I had first started doing ultras, and then I started racing internationally, and most international races like don't allow you to have any help. And so I started doing like a hard shift back in America to like get away from that like crew life and that pace life, and I just found that it was like, it's a lot harder because in ultra marathoning, like a lot of times you get a little loopy, like your brain gets like fatigued and like you'll hallucinate and you'll think weird things and you'll want to quit, or like your brain plays like a lot of very intense tricks on you, especially if you get dehydrated or if you get, low on calories, or you've just been up for like a day and a half or something like that. So not having a crew or not having like a pacer, which a pacer is somebody that runs alongside you and like, can talk to you and help you and push you. Not having all that makes you super reliant on just you, which is very, very difficult. This is what I like. It makes the race a lot harder. It makes, I just watched this documentary on Cocodona, which was really amazing. And the person in the documentary had like 20 people following them around, doing all this stuff for them. Like they'd get to the aid station, they'd have a van with a bed in there, and they'd fall in and, they'd sleep on this bed and do all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I was literally just falling on the dirt and just sleeping in like, deer shit. And like, just, that was like my reality for like 4 days. It's a very different experience. It's like the difference between staying at like the Ritz-Carlton and then like, going and staying at like a Holiday Inn Express or something like that, or like a Motel 6. It's
Motel shit.
Yeah, I mean, you're just out there roughing it, which I like. I'd have to come into an aid station and like you have to have everything in your brain like, okay, I have to do this, and this, and like what's the consequences if you forget? Like one time I did everything I needed to do. I put sunscreen on, I ate, I did all this stuff, and I took off. And 10 miles into the next aid station, I realized, shit, I didn't put any calories in my backpack. So I had like no food. So now I got to go 20 miles with no food. What are the consequences of that? Well, there's real consequences, real severe consequences. And there's no one to blame but yourself. And like, you know, you try not to make those mistakes, but you know, inevitably you make all sorts of crazy mistakes when it's just you and your brain's like fried.
Yeah.
But I love, like, I'm all about that life. I look around and I see everybody getting pampered and like, oh, what do you need? What do you? And I just think to myself like, yeah, that'd be nice, but it's so much like nicer just to be out here by myself. Like, just Andy. Andy's, you know, I think I got to do it all myself, and I really like that. So, but you know. It's just me. And then when people are like, oh, what place did you get? I'm like, what place did I get, like, against all the other people that were out there doing it by themselves, or against all the people with 20 people following them around? Like, you know, I mean, how do you even categorize, you know, competition when it comes to something like that? You know, yeah, like I could have a whole crew and they could help me and I could have a pacer and I could do all that stuff, but I don't. So am I competing against the people that, you know, have all that other stuff? Like, in my mind, I'm not. And in my mind, I'm not competing against those people because they're doing a different type of race. So,
yeah. Have you ever thought about doing like unsupported FKTs?
I mean, I did one last year. I would probably love it. It's just I've never really dipped my toe too much into that world, so I don't know a whole lot about it, but I did race a little bit with Jeff Garmeyer, who's like the king of FKTs at Cocodona this year, and we talked a little bit about it. I mean, I think that it would be fun, like on some things. I did a double Joshua Tree Traverse, which is like it ends up being like 74 miles, and I did it like self-supported, so I had to carry all my own food and water for 74 miles, and I got the FKT, I think last December. So that was my first attempt. It wasn't anything special. I think I got the FKT by like 45 minutes or an hour or something like that. But you know, it was still hard carrying food and water for 75 miles. I was like, wow, this is a lot of weight to start off the adventure with. So.
I've been talking to Jeff a little bit because he has a lot of FKTs, but he has the Colorado Trail, and I'm going for that in August. Different variation. So the Colorado Trail, you know, you can do it in different ways. But yeah, Garmeyer's like the king of just powering through on no sleep, limited calories. Just he's able to really go to some dark places and keep putting down mileage.
Yeah, he's pretty amazing, man. We I think we ran the first, I don't know, we were somewhere on the first day or two we were going, and yeah, he like me will just literally just lie down in the dirt and just take a nap, you know? Like we were running and then all of a sudden he was like, "Oh, I got to take a nap." And he just laid down in the dirt and just slept, and you know, to me it doesn't even bat an eye because like I know I'll be doing that in a little bit too, you know? Like, you know, other people they're not going to do that. So, yeah, Jeff's pretty amazing.
I've heard him say on podcasts before that that's part of his unique advantage is the sleeping thing, because he needs very little sleep and he can sleep anywhere at any time and just shut it down like a computer and not have to think about, oh, I need to pack a sleep system. I need to pack sleeping clothes. You know, he doesn't need any of that. It's just lay down, pass out, wake up, run, and do it all over.
See, I can do that no problem. My problem is I haven't figured out, like, when I get into like the multi-day, my body starts like really wanting more sleep. Like the 10, 15-minute nap just doesn't do it for me. I start needing like, you know, 2 or 3 hours, and then that, you know, I just get so tired it gets like crazy. But it might be because I'm 45. I don't know how old Jeff is, but I don't think he's 45. You know, I think he's a little bit younger. when I was younger, I needed no sleep. So I can like relate with it, but like as I've gotten older, my body's like, I my threshold right now is, and I've done it multiple times in the last couple of years, is I can go 41 to 42 hours with no sleep and just constant movement. But after that, like I am like, my body will literally just fall asleep as I'm running. So that's about as long as I can push myself with no sleep.
I'm wondering, like, I mean, that just seems like the limit for everybody. I can't see how anybody else can run for longer than 42 hours.
Well, they
Like,
do. I mean, that Barkley marathons, they go 60 hours with like, maybe, but they might take a 10-minute nap here or there. I don't know what they're doing. So, um, yeah.
it's a world that's still developing, which I think is really cool. Like this whole ultra running thing, like we're not even close to the final frontier on it. Like there's just so much still to learn, and I think you're one of those guys who's pushing the limits and letting people know that human capability is more paramount, more important, and bigger than we ever thought.
Well, and I hope like for me, because I'm not winning these crazy things and running like, 14-hour Western States, like, hopefully I'm a little bit more relatable to most people than like the 20-year-old kid with no family and, no job running crazy fast. Like they're awesome and God bless them. But like, I think most of the people that follow me are like, mid to, back of the Packers who are just like appreciating the journey of like somebody doing hard things because they want to do hard things, but like they're not going to win it either. They just want to like want the experience, and the experience is where it's all at. So
I think the other part that makes you more relatable is just how funny some of the shit you put out is. Like, I'll be like scrolling and then you'll catch me with like a meme and you'll just hit me in the gut and I'll just bust out laughing. The one about the one about the guy who was chirping you for running too slow. Oh my God, that was one of my favorite conversations I've ever heard.
yeah, he ended up apologizing and then like said he's changed his whole training plan and is like running slow now. And it's like, he's like, it's a lot more enjoyable. And you were like totally right. And like, I had no idea what I was talking about. And he like follows me now. Yeah.
Oh my God.
True story. The guy that told me I was a slow jogger or a fast walker. Yeah. Yeah. It all works out. He saw the light. So
Yeah, he came over to the dark side.
like, yeah, no, I do like, people are like, oh, you shouldn't, don't pay any of those people like any attention. And it's like, I post like people talking shit to me because I find it like personally hilarious. And like, I hope that like you guys read that stuff and you laugh too, because it's like, it's really funny to me. Like, I don't get like upset when people like, oh, you'd be faster if you ate meat, or, oh, you run so slow. Like, I find that shit hilarious, and so like I post it as a joke, and man, it's the reaction of people is like hilarious. People get really into it.
I can tell you got at least one person on the timeline laughing because when I see that stuff, I think it's so funny. Like, just the concept of people telling you how to run,
Right.
it's like hilarious thought to me.
Yeah. No, I got some guy right now telling me like I should be running my mountain ultras in barefoot, and I'd be better if I was barefoot. And I'm like, dude, have you ever run in the mountains? Like, it's like sharp rocks the whole time. Like, I can't be running that. He's like, oh, you build up calluses. Like, no, bro, I would not build up calluses like running in the mountains barefoot. Like, that's not going to happen. So
Yeah, so everyone's got their opinions, and the thing is, it costs nothing to put the opinion out there now. It's free,
yeah.
so
People love to argue. People love to, fight and do all that sort of fun stuff. So, nah.
well, I
Got it.
appreciate your lighthearted spirit and just the way you hold yourself. If folks are looking to follow you, what's a good way for them to stay in touch?
So let's see. I'm on Instagram. I'm amglaze or amglaze, AMGLAZE, which is, literally just my initials, Andrew Michael Glaze. Everyone's like, why is, it's like, well, because back in the day when I made, Instagram, I wasn't thinking that it was going to turn into this like crazy thing that it is now. On TikTok, I'm Glaze Runs because Glaze was taken. And on Strava, I'm Andrew Glaze. So Strava is like I'm actually verified on Strava, and like that's like what I'm most excited about is like I have like 18,000 followers on Strava. So um, yeah, I'm on YouTube too, but like not anything significant. Like I haven't figured out that platform yet, so I don't even know what I'm under on YouTube.
It's all good. All right.
Yeah,
Well, you guys know where to find him now. Andrew, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy run schedule and crazy life to sit down and chat with me.
of course, man. It was fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And if you're ever in Colorado, let me know and we'll go hit a slow jog or a fast walk together.
Can't wait. I really need to hit Colorado soon.
All right, man. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you guys next time.